I am a National Park Service ranger at Gettysburg. I work the overnight patrols. There are things on this field the visitor brochure does not mention. On the 150th anniversary of Pickett's charge in 2013, 14,000 reenactors took the field at 3 p.m. NPS thermal imaging counted 14,800 men. The extra 800 showed up. The extra 800 have always been there. The extra 800 never went home.
Frank has patrolled these fields for 13 years. He knows the difference between a shift gone quiet and a shift where something else stirs. Rangers like Frank don't call them ghosts. Internally, the NPS uses a colder term, residual personnel.
I've seen it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
On that July day, in the midst of a massive reenactment, the thermal cameras picked up something that wasn't supposed to be there. The count read 14,800. But 14,000 were living men. The other 800. They've been missing since 1863.
The NPS doesn't officially confirm their existence, but every overnight ranger knows. We call them residual personnel.
It's a careful phrase, a gray term for something that shouldn't be there, but refuses to leave.
My first year, I was on patrol near the angle. Around 2 a.m., I heard it. Cannon fire, distant but clear.
Not a reenactment, not a recording. The ground shuddered. The air smelled of sulfur and something older.
I knew the history, but knowing and hearing are different things altogether.
Through the fog, a line of men in kepis moved forward. Not walking, marching. Their muskets glinted under a thin moon.
I shouted at them. They didn't stop. Then, between one heartbeat and the next, they were gone. I told myself it was exhaustion, a trick of the light, but I checked the time. 3:11 a.m.
The same minute, Pickett's men reached the Union line in 1863. It wasn't exhaustion.
That was the night I stopped telling myself this job was just about lost hikers and traffic stops.
Months before the anniversary, the NPS knew this reenactment would be the largest in a century. 14,000 registered.
They handed me the thermal assignment. Crowd safety, they said, a formality. But I saw how the senior rangers avoided my eyes.
The park prepared for an invasion of living historians. Cannon emplacements were checked, fences mended.
You've drawn the overnight shifts for a reason, Frank. You see things, keep your eyes open and your mouth shut.
He knew something. They all knew something. Nobody would say what.
July 2nd, the camp swelled with reenactors. Canvas tents stretched across the fields like a ghost of 1863. Men in gray wool shirts practiced drill in the July heat. The air smelled of leather, black powder, and apprehension.
I patrolled through the camps that night. The reenactors laughed and sang, but beyond the fires, the dark parts of the field were silent, watching. 14,000 men would take the field at 3 p.m. tomorrow. But I couldn't shake the feeling that we wouldn't be alone.
The FLIR equipment was calibrated. Frank was at the station when dawn broke on July 3rd, the monitor waiting to count the living. By noon, the field swarmed with living history. Reenactors in gray and blue marched to their assembly points, muskets shining.
14,000 registered. A perfect number. Too perfect. I kept thinking.
The system's live. Any shift in the heat patterns. We'll see it long before the crowds notice.
And if we see something that isn't supposed to be there,
then you do what we always do. You log it. You don't make a scene.
At 2:45, the field fell into an eerie quiet. 14,000 men held their breath waiting for the cannonade. In the station, the FLIR screen came alive with pinpricks of heat, perfectly matching the reenactors' positions. The counter read 14,000.
Everything accounted for. Every living soul. Why does this feel so wrong?
At 3 p.m., the cannon thundered. The reenactors surged forward, a river of wool and steel. Frank leaned closer to the monitor. The counter held firm, but something in the static of the heat signatures made his skin crawl. From above, the charge was a living map of a dead battle. Thousands of men in gray pushed toward the stone wall, muskets flashing. On the thermal screen, the swarm of orange moved as one, a perfect simulation of Pickett's doomed advance. 14,000.
Reads clean. Every heat signature, right where history says it should be. No surprises.
The detail was unnerving. Reenactors sweating under wool, gripping muskets with white knuckles, living the terror of a charge they'd rehearsed 1,000 times.
They're playing soldiers, but something out there is not playing. I can feel it in the pit of my stomach.
Frank watched the digital clock in the corner of the screen. 3:10. The advance line reached the angle, where the real bloodbath happened. In the field, the reenactors shouted and fell in prearranged death scenes. The crowd cheered oblivious.
History preserved, Frank. Every anniversary, the same pageantry. But you know it's not all pageantry.
He knows. He's waiting, just like me. The hands on the clock crawl.
At 3:11 p.m., the counter on the screen stuttered once. Then it began to rise silently, relentlessly. The numbers climbed like a fever. 14,200, 14,500. The screen bloomed with orange shapes where none should be.
Lucas, the count. It's not stopping. 14,800. That's 800 over.
System glitch. Has to be. Reboot the secondary feed. It'll correct.
The secondary feed showed the same impossible truth. 14,800 heat signatures, moving in a line where no reenactors stood. The extra bodies didn't scatter. They clustered along the precise axis of the 1863 Confederate advance, neat and orderly.
No equipment error does this. This is formation. This is intentional.
For 18 minutes, the phantom soldiers marched in silent lockstep. At 3:29, they faded, as if the sun had burned them away.
Don't touch the logs. Don't file anything. We check the hardware. Say nothing until we know.
You saw it, Lucas. 800 men on a field full of living reenactors. What do we do with that?
Lucas had no answer. The room fell silent, except for the hum of machines. Outside, the crowd cheered for a battle they couldn't know.
We report a sensor error. That's the final word.
Lucas, 2 separate feeds showed the same thing. It wasn't an error.
It was. And if you value your career, you'll accept that and move on.
The official incident report was filed within the hour. Cause thermal calibration anomaly. No further investigation required.
They buried it like a dirty secret. But secrets don't stay buried here. Not for long.
That night, Frank walked the angle alone. In the silence after midnight, he heard drumbeats, faint like a pulse in the earth.
The time on my phone read 3:11 a.m. It wasn't an error. It can't be. I need to know who those men were. What kept them here?
Over the following days, what Lucas said and didn't say gnawed at Frank. The number 800 traced a cold line through his thoughts.
Something was waiting for the next anniversary. I had to be ready.
Frank drove to the park library. A dusty room few rangers entered. He pulled casualty lists, quartermaster reports, burial records.
Pickett's division started with over 5,000 men. By nightfall, half were dead or wounded, and hundreds simply vanished.
The surrender reports listed over 800 men from Pickett's division as missing, presumed dead. Their bodies were never recovered.
800 missing. The exact number on that screen. It's not a coincidence, it's an accounting.
Frank dug deeper. Those men had no graves, no markers. Their families waited decades for word that never came.
They never got a death certificate. They were never honored. Maybe that's why they're still here. They don't know they're dead. The thermal anomaly wasn't a glitch. It was a roll call of the unrecovered dead.
The thought fixed itself in his mind. He began to see the battlefield as 2 layers. The one visitors walked, and another beneath, still fighting.
If the NPS knew, they'd have records. Lucas has been here forever. He has to know something.
He decided then he would confront Lucas, force the old ranger to tell him what he knew. The next shift, he would get his answer.
I know about the 800, Lucas. The unrecovered dead. How long has the NPS known?
You've been poking into things that aren't your concern. Let it go, Frank.
I can't. I hear them every night. Their drum beats, their voices. I need the truth.
All right. There's a record I should have shown you years ago. Come with me.
Lucas led him to a patrol truck. They drove in tense silence to a storage shed on the far edge of the battlefield.
What I am about to show you is not official. It doesn't exist. You breathe a word. You are done.
I'd already crossed a line. Whatever was in that shed, I had to know.
The shed was cold, lit by a single bulb. Lucas unlocked a heavy filing cabinet with an old brass key. Inside was a leather-bound logbook, its pages yellowed with age. Lucas set it on the table.
Everything you think you know is in here, but once you read it, it changes you. It's your choice, Frank.
Frank opened the logbook. The first entry was dated the 3rd of July, 1959. A handwritten note, thermal anomaly detected. Extra signatures, 800, page after page, the same anomaly. Every 5th year, 1960, 1965, 1970. The number never changed.
Exactly 800. Every time. Lucas knew this all along.
They're Pickett's missing men. Bodies never recovered. They don't know they died.
So they keep fighting because no one ever told them the war is over?
A later entry contained the official theory. The men were never declared dead. Without honors, they can't rest.
This is monstrous. We've been watching them suffer for decades.
That's why we don't interfere. We're observers, Frank, not saviors.
Then why keep a logbook? Why not burn it and pretend they're not here?
Lucas's voice followed him out into the dawn. Because someone has to remember. That's our job, even if it breaks us.
I read the logbook cover to cover that night. The pattern was precise. Every 5 years, same hour, same place. They halt where the real charge stalled, waiting for reinforcements that never arrive.
In the margins, Lucas had written, "They look east toward the tree line," expecting relief.
You've just watched this for decades? Why not try to help them?
Interfere? And risk what? We don't know if they'd become hostile or just disappear forever.
Disappear might be better than this. They're stuck in a loop of their last moments.
You think peace is that simple? They don't know they're dead, Frank. Telling them might not set them free. It might bind them tighter.
Lucas's face was etched with decades of guilt. He wasn't callous, he was terrified of making things worse.
But doing nothing felt like being an accomplice. Their suffering was real, and I held the secret.
He shut the logbook and walked out into the gathering dark. The voices on the wind seemed to press closer, as if they sensed his wavering resolve. Sleep became a foreign country. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw them, faces he couldn't name, but knew. In one dream, they marched toward him with hollow eyes, their mouths forming words he couldn't hear.
I nearly called a journalist. The story would shatter the NPS. But Lucas's voice echoed. You'd be branded a kook.
Lucas had spelled out the consequences. Disbelief, unemployment, maybe worse. The truth was a quarantine zone. On a windless night near the copse of trees, he heard a single whispered word. Home.
Not a threat. A plea. Their desire was so simple, so human, it undid me.
He saw that word written everywhere in Lucas's logbook. Between every sterile line, a cry for rest no gun could silence.
Lucas's voice again. You are spiraling, Frank. Rookies who get too close end up broken or gone. Then I'll be broken. But I won't be a bystander anymore.
That conviction became a splinter in his mind. He didn't know how, but he would find a way to reach them before the next cycle consumed them all.
Lucas, I need to run the Fleer again for the 2018 anniversary. I have to see it with my own eyes.
You are already too deep, Frank. This isn't a hobby. It's an obsession that'll swallow you.
Then consider it a safety measure. We need to verify the anomaly didn't damage the equipment. That's official.
Fine. You'll be the thermal tech. But when it breaks you, don't say I didn't warn you.
Frank threw himself into preparation. He studied the Fleer system until he could operate it blindfolded, ran diagnostics on every component. He tracked the calendar like a countdown, each crossed day, bringing him closer to a reckoning.
I am ready. More ready than Lucas knows. But every night, the voices grow louder.
His patrols became reconnaissance. He mapped every inch of the advance line, noting where the air felt thickest.
I have to document everything. Even if it costs me my career, I won't let them be forgotten.
As July 3rd, 2018 drew close, The battlefield seemed to hold its breath. Frank could feel the dead gathering just beyond sight. Frank's patrols became obsessive. Every night, he walked the advance line, flashlight off, just listening.
I started carrying a digital recorder. The EVPs came within a week. Whispers of forward and hold. Always at 311.
One foggy night, he saw them. Shadows moving in formation through the mist. No sound but the crunch of his own boots.
They're getting bolder. Like they know I am watching.
The other rangers began to whisper. Frank heard his own name in hushed tones near the break room.
You look like hell, Frank. When's the last time you slept a full night?
Sleep is a luxury. They need me more than I need rest.
He felt a constant pressure, a sense that the dead were pressing in, demanding attention.
I can't stop now. I am so close to proving it.
His reflection in the truck window showed a gaunt stranger. The countdown to July 3rd was a physical ache. On July 3rd, 2018, Frank sat alone at the FLIR console. The digital clock ticked toward 3:11. Then, as if pulled by an invisible hand, the counter began its climb. The numbers rose relentlessly. The familiar orange advance line appeared on the thermal map. But among them, clusters formed. Small groups of signatures moved in tight formation, as if guided by a common will.
This wasn't the mindless echo of a charge. It was a column with leaders.
He hit the screenshot key over and over, capturing every detail before it could vanish. For 18 minutes, the phantom parade continued. Then, like mist at sunrise, it faded. The screen returned to empty fields. Only the living remained, oblivious to what had just occurred. Frank sat back, his reflection gaunt on the dark monitor. The anomaly had intensified. He saved the data to a private drive. The dead were learning, and now he had proof. In the weeks after the event, Frank lived in the numbers. He cross-referenced thermal data with the logbook.
The baseline was shifting. Each cycle, the count ticked up by single digits.
He plotted the data on a graph. The line wasn't flat. It was trending upward.
At this rate, by 2025, we'd see well over 900 signatures.
More alarming were the clusters. They weren't random. They moved independently, like cells splitting.
The leaders. I saw them. They're the ones pulling others into the charge. They're not just stuck. They're recruiting.
The thought broke him into a cold sweat. If the dead could reach out and pull others in, the next cycle might be catastrophic.
I can't wait until it's too late. I have to stop this before it swallows someone living.
He closed his laptop and looked out the window at the dark battlefield. His decision was made. He would intervene.
Lucas, the cycle isn't static. The numbers are climbing. In 2018, I saw clusters, small groups moving with intent.
Clusters. Frank, you are seeing patterns in noise. The anomaly is a fixed echo, nothing more.
It's not noise. The clusters had leaders. They're recruiting, pulling in other lost souls. The next cycle could be catastrophic.
Recruiting. That's a leap into fantasy. You've been isolated too long, Frank. This is obsession, not evidence.
Then I'll prove it. On July 3rd, 2025, I'll be on that field, not behind a screen, with a thermal unit in my hand.
Lucas stared at him, the unspoken truth hanging between them. Once you step into that charge, you might not come out the same.
I'll map the exact coordinates of the advance line. I'll be standing where they stand at 311. They have to see me.
He requisitioned a handheld thermal camera, testing it on the empty fields until it felt like an extension of his arm.
My career is already over if anyone finds out. But the voices here are louder than any consequence.
With each night patrol, he rehearsed his plan. The dead would have their audience, and Frank would have his answer. In the months before the 2025 anniversary, the whispers on the night patrol sharpened into words.
I heard it clearly near the angle. Forward, boys. We're going home.
He captured the voice on his recorder, trembling as he played it back. The words were unmistakable. Other voices joined. Where are the reinforcements? Hold the line. A chorus of the damned. A chorus of the damned.
They know. They're waiting for me to do something.
On patrol, the air grew thick with unseen eyes. He felt their gaze like a physical weight.
Every step I take, they track. I'm not just watching them anymore. They're watching me.
One night he set up a camera and left it running. The playback showed a faint glow moving toward the lens. On the eve of July 2nd, he walked the advance line, marking the spot for tomorrow's vigil. As dawn broke on July 3rd, 2025, the field was silent. The dead were gathering, and so was he. Frank stood at the marked spot, thermal camera raised. At 3 p.m., the field was deathly still. He watched the screen. For 11 minutes, nothing. Then, like static, the first orange flicker. The counter began its climb. Past 900 relentless, 922. His heart hammered. He looked up from the screen. The air thickened. A line of men materialized, not as shadows but as detailed figures, muskets gleaming.
I see you. You can stop. The war is over.
They didn't hear or didn't care. The formation swept forward, passing through him like a cold wind. He tried to step in front of them, waving his arms. They moved through him, their faces fixed on the tree line.
They can't see me. I am nothing to them. Just another observer.
The count on his screen held for 18 minutes, then dropped. One by one, the figures dissolved into the glowing afternoon. Frank fell to his knees in the empty field, the camera dangling. The dead had marched again. He had not been enough. As the last phantoms dissolved, a whisper reached Frank, clear as a bell tolling, a chorus of voices from nowhere and everywhere. The words they'd carried for a century. Hold the line. Where are the reinforcements? The dead were still waiting, still believing.
They don't know. 160 years, and they still think help is coming. You are dead. There are no reinforcements. Please, just rest.
The only answer was the whisper of wind through the grass, the field resuming its ancient silence.
They'll be back in 5 years, and I'll be here, watching, and still they won't see me.
He collapsed onto the grass, the weight of the truth pressing him into the earth. There was no release for them, no closure. Only the endless cycle of hope and slaughter. And there, in the gathering dark, Frank wept for them and for himself. Hours later, Frank sat in the storage shed, the logbook open before him. His hand trembled as he wrote. The 3rd of July, 2025. Thermal count, 922. The anomaly continues. The dead are still waiting.
I can't save them, but I can bear witness. That'll have to be enough.
He closed the leather cover and placed the logbook back in the filing cabinet, the brass key turning with a final click. Outside, the night reclaimed the field. Frank climbed into his patrol truck and stared at his reflection in the window. He drove his usual route, the headlights cutting through the fog past the park entrance sign. He parked at the angle and walked onto the dark field, his flashlight a single beam among the shadows. He stood where the charge met the wall, listening to the silence that was never truly silent.
I'll be here for the next one, and the one after. As long as they march, I'll stand watch. I'll stand watch.
The fog closed in around him, and the night ate up his shape until only the occasional distant drumbeat remained. The patrols continued. One unremarkable night, Frank heard a new sound in the familiar whispers, his own name.
I froze. The word was clear. Frank. Not a plea. An acknowledgement.
He turned, expecting a soldier. Instead, fresh footprints in the dew, incredibly close. The prints weren't his. They led from the advance line, stopping just behind him.
They were here, not just marching past, but circling back, watching me watch them.
He swept his flashlight beam across the field, but the fog swallowed the light. Then, on the edge of hearing, the voices resumed. One stood out. Hold the line, Ranger.
The name they'd given me. I am not an observer anymore. I am part of their story.
He walked backward, then turned and headed for his truck. He didn't run. Running felt like breaking something fragile. The drumbeats followed him to the road. When he looked back, the field was full of shadows that seemed to wave.